Alright, so this garden's a good place to start. So you can see that between the rows I've got cardboard, right? So there's no weeds in the cardboard, but every single spot where there's bare earth I've got weeds, right? This is the, oh, what's that plant? Salsify, right? That's the plant Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I thought I would do a video on the weeds I have in my garden. Basically the relationship between weeds and mulch. People are always asking me, whenever I do a video where I'm applying a mulch, whether it's grass clippings or hay or seaweed or whatever, people are always saying, does that have weeds in it? Does it cause weeds? Does it have weed seeds in it? And that's an odd kind of question, I think, because even if you don't have a mulch, you're going to get weeds. Right? You take a garden and you till the whole thing up, grind it all up in really fine pieces with a rototiller, and you get this, beautiful, uniform black soil. And if you do nothing, it's going to be covered in weeds in a month, right? So asking whether a mulch causes weeds, I don't really understand the point, because you've already got them. It's like asking me if this shirt causes breathing. 'Cause I'm going to breathe anyway. You're going to get weeds anyway, no matter what you do. And because weed seeds are in the air, right? They're everywhere, sort of thing, right? So regardless of what mulch you're going to use, you're going to get weeds anyway. And I've got weeds all over the place in my garden. And I don't spend a lot of time weeding, because when you use a mulch, it controls the weeds. You just don't get as many, right? Regardless of what it is. And people will talk about using straw because it doesn't have the seeds in it. Yeah, but straw blows around a lot more than hay. Hay tends to stay put. So if your straw is blowing around, it's not going to be as good as a weed suppressor as something that stays in a clump, right? And if you mow your lawn, you got grass clippings, that makes an excellent clump, and you don't need as much. It's a very dense clump. It does a really good job of smothering out weeds. But of course, it's very likely you're going to have clover seeds in your grass. If you got a lawn like mine, there's lots of clover in my lawn. I don't care about that. You're going to get that. So, I mean, the main thing is that the mulch suppresses the weeds to a large extent, and because it keeps the soil soft and moist, it's really easy to pull weeds when you do get them. So what I thought I'd do is take you around here and just show you all the different weeds I have in my garden, and also a couple pieces of bare earth where the weeds are just unbelievable. And of course, people are always making this comment, so I got to speak to it. Do you watch Charles Dowding? He puts compost on his garden, and he doesn't get weeds or slugs. Yeah, Charles Dowding, he's a nice guy, and I like his videos. Great channel. Number one, Charles Dowding is a full-time gardener, right? He does this. This is what he does, right? Makes a living running a market garden and writing books and all that sort of stuff. I work 10 hours a day in a cubicle. Right? I don't have the kind of time he has. I'm out here maybe 10 minutes a day or less, right? I mean, this morning I was going to come out and do some weeding, but I decided to do this video instead. So I'm not getting anything. I was going to come out here for about 15 minutes and do some weedings before breakfast, but I decided to shoot this video instead. So I really don't spend much time working in my garden at all. Most of my time out here is spent making videos and stuff. So it is way easier to just put the mulch on your garden than to take the different mulching materials, put them in a compost sort of station, get the right ratio of green to brown, turn them over, all that sort of stuff, and then after that's all done, move it out and put it on top of your soil. It's just easier to put the stuff on there and leave it. Number two, I can't put kitchen scraps in my compost where I live. There's bears and lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my, right? There's bears and things like that here. So there's just no way to compost kitchen scraps here. I've tried it, and just animals dig it all up, and it ends up all over the place, and it really just doesn't work. Number three, I think using things like leaves and grass clippings and straw does a much better job at moisture retention than putting an inch or two of compost on, in my experience anyway. I've tried both, and I find that, especially during the heat of the summer, leaves and grass and straw just does a much better job. And I've done videos on this, keeping the soil moist and helping you avoid the necessity of having to water all the time. I hardly ever need to turn a hose on out here. If I get a good rain every couple weeks, I'm good. That's all I need. So I mean, I don't have an irrigation system. Basically, it rains, and that's the irrigation system. The sky is my irrigation system. And I'm not you know, the point of this video is not to speak to Charles Dowding. I'm not disputing the fact that he's an excellent gardener, he gets excellent results. Also, there's the fact that where he lives is considerably warmer than where I am. So where he lives, it's just a better place to be doing hot composting on the scale that he does it, right? I mean, if I was going to cover every bed in this garden with a couple inches of compost every year, I would need a pretty elaborate compost setup to make that happen, right? I just don't have the time or the space to. I guess I do have the space to do it. That's not true. I just don't feel like it because I don't have to. That's the best way I put it. This is easier, right? I'm in a cubicle 10 hours a day, and when I come home, you know, I might run out to the garden, grab something to cook for supper like I did last night, and I might come out around this time of day, 6 a.m. To do a little bit of, you know, maintaining things. Usually between 5:30 and 6:30 in the morning is when I'm out here because the flies aren't too bad. You know, but on a typical day I might come out here 5-10 minutes and that's it. Yeah, that's, I don't think it's a really thorough discussion of why I don't do things exactly the way he does, but yeah, it's warmer. It's also just warmer where he is. It's a warmer climate, and so it's more conducive to hot composting year round. There's certain months of the year here where it would be very challenging. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you'd have to have a sort of well thought out setup to do hot composting year round here in this environment, because we just have a colder winter. So anyway, let me just take you around and show you some of these weeds I got going on here. All right. All right. So this garden's a good place to start. So you can see that between the rows I've got cardboard, right? So there's no weeds in the cardboard, but every single spot where there's bare earth, I've got weeds, right? This is the oh, what's that plant? Salsify, right? So that's the plant I want. And then everywhere where the slightest bit of soil was exposed, I got this thing, whatever it is, which I need to get around. I was going to do that this morning, but I decided to shoot this film instead. Anyway, this stuff comes out no problem, and you know, I could have done. This garden looks like a mess, but I could have easily done this morning in about 15 or 20 minutes. And it's really the only garden I have left with any sort of serious weeds. Most of my gardens don't have weeds, right? Here's a garden where I'm growing cucumbers, and I got this vetch. You can see this vetch growing in here, right? Really, the cucumbers and the vetch really aren't competing for the same things. If anything, vetch is nitrogen fixing, as I understand it. I can double check that, but pretty sure that's the case. It's like a pea. No, it's a terribly bad weed. But anyway, I just go around and sort of just pull it up and leave it there. But I mean, the roots of vetch get in there, and they're kind of hard to deal with. The best way to deal with vetch, in my opinion, is to just cover the whole garden with paper, right? Which I didn't do. This garden here, what I should have done was covered the whole thing with paper and made a couple holes and planted the squash, or these are cucumbers, in the holes. But instead I just put mulch down, and because there was so much vetch, just naturally, I don't think the vetch was caused by the hay. I think it was just there, because I've got vetch everywhere, right? I mean there could have been vetch seeds in the hay for sure, but I mean I got hay growing in between the two garden beds here in the sand, right? I got some vetch growing right here in the sand. It's basically, there isn't an inch of my garden where it doesn't come up, right? But for the most part, it's just sort of under control, right? Here, I've got paper instead of using, straw, stuff like that. And, the only place the weeds are growing are, I've got this, oh, what's that called? It's just not coming to mind. Anyway, just a typical garden weed that is somewhat edible, I guess. And I got that. And I got this sorrel, right? Is that called yarrow? I can't remember now. Anyway, just all your typical weeds are coming up there, right? There's some grass there. Anywhere there's bare earth, I get weeds. Here's a strawberry garden that's well mulched, and I've got these little sorrel. I mean, yeah, you can eat them, right? But I mean, I would eat sorrel if I was, you know, doing a survival guy episode and I hadn't eaten for 3 days. It's really, it's something you'd add as a flavor to a meal, not a main course, right? I just pull the weeds and throw them on top, and basically say, no, you're not a weed, you're a mulch now. That's all I do. And you see how easily they come out, right? It's not a big deal, right? Here's one that seems to be growing well and that's well rooted. They're just, oh, that one actually broke off. There's the root ball there, right? You just pull them and throw them on top. And you know, it's going to get sunny today. They're going to die in the sun. Here I've got carrots growing, and there's some rows like this one where I've done a pretty good job of controlling the weeds. Maybe a little thinning's needed. And there's other rows like over here where I haven't done anything, and it's just one more little thing to do. I mean, if I have a 5 or 10 minute window of time, I might do something like that. But you can see it's when you say, does mulch cause weeds? You know, this cardboard didn't cause these weeds, right? The bare soil that was just here, that's got the weed seeds, and there's an incredible variety, right? There's whatever on earth this plant is, I don't even know what that is, right? There's a clover there, right? There's grass, all these things, right? There's just an incredible variety of different weeds that are in the soil. There's blackberry bushes trying to migrate their way into my garden, right? It's just not a big deal. Honestly, it's not a big deal. I mean, if it was a big deal, I don't think I'd be getting results like this. And again, I am gone 10 hours a day, and I'm not out here. You know, I might be out here working in my garden 5 or 10 minutes a day, and many days I don't. Yesterday I didn't do anything out here, right? So, you know, if it was a real problem, I couldn't maintain a garden on this size and on this scale if weeds were a problem. Right, here's another, I don't know what this thing is. It's got these little sort of black spots. You just pull it out and it comes out, roots and all. You just lay the roots on top of the mulch. There's a bit of vetch there, some other stuff. Right, and just pull them and turn them into a mulch. That's all I got to do. And in a garden like this, where I've got densely planted potatoes and then beans going up the trellis, I have no idea what weeds are growing in amongst these potatoes. I can see some, you know, some nice weeds. Like here's some dill just came in on its own, and here's a borage plant that just came up. If you ever grow borage, you're going to have it in your garden for the rest of your life. And yeah, it draws pollinators in, but so does all the flowers on these potatoes, and so does everything else. Anyway, my point is that I have no idea. You know, when I planted the potatoes in this garden, I put 6 or, you know, at least 6 inches of mulch over the soil, and I'm sure there was weed seeds in that mulch. And who cares? Because it looks like I'm getting lots of potatoes, right? This garden, I did a video, I don't know, about a month ago, where I weeded the whole thing and put down a layer of grass clippings, and it didn't take long at all. And yeah, there's still the odd weed like this one here, right, finding its way in through. No big deal, right? And a lot of these weeds, you could just leave them. I mean, I've always been surprised how well plants do even when there is weeds. One year I had a carrot garden where I just sort of left it alone, and I was surprised at how good of a yield I got, despite the fact that the thing was covered in weeds. It basically looked like a lawn, but there was carrots in it. You know, I'm not saying every plant will work that way. The carrots get really deep, and I'm not saying that work in every instance, right? But yeah, there's weeds everywhere, and they're, you know, to a large extent the mulch sort of keeps them under control. And look, it's getting zucchini already. This garden has not. This zucchini garden is a good example. Like this was basically leaves and some spruce boughs, basically. And I haven't done a thing in here. I haven't weeded it or nothing, right? And as you can tell, it's doing pretty good, especially for this part of the world. If you're getting zucchini in July, you're doing good. You're having a good year. And that seems to be the case this year. In this Swiss chard garden, when I just re-mulched it a little while ago, because the mulch had, this was originally mulched months ago, and the mulch I got was just some bags of yard waste that someone had thrown away on the side of the road. And you can see these are seeds. I don't know what they are, some kind of seed. And I'm sure there's people going to think I'm crazy that I just would throw that on there, but I've been doing this for years. And I just do not worry about it. Really, I don't. If you want to be like, I've done a really good job in here of getting after weeds, right? So this is basically weedless. There's a little bit of sorrel there, right? I mean, you just never completely have it under control. I think people worry too much about it. Honest to God, I think people just worry about it too much. This notion of this perfect, flawless, weedless garden. You have to control the weeds. It's just kind of like brushing your teeth and flossing, right? You brush your teeth and you floss your teeth, and then a couple hours later you eat a hamburger, and your teeth are full of starch and meat. And then you floss them and brush them again later on. You're controlling the various things in your mouth. It's the same thing in the garden. It's kind of like the odd brushing or flossing. You're controlling the situation, but you're not in control. Right? There's too much going on for you to be in control. You're just knocking them back when you see them getting to be a problem. Like, really, there isn't one garden bed here I'm really concerned about, except these carrots have a bit too much weeds in them. I just can't seem to get around to weeding them, but that's on my radar as something I need to do. And this beet garden, the one I started with, got a bit too much weeds for my liking. I think the weeds at this level of weeds, they're going to outcompete, and or at least use up a lot of the sort of nutrients and resources in the soil. So yeah, a little bit of weeding needed here, but that's really the only thing in this whole garden. That's the only thing on my radar, is the thing I need to do. Everything else is just fine. Tickety boo, leave it alone. Just leave it alone, it'll be fine. Anyway, weeds. Yes, there's weeds in that mulch, and don't worry about it. It'd be my advice. You come out in the garden, it's nice in the morning, the birds are singing, the flies aren't too bad. You get a little bit of stretching, a little bit of exercise, just enough to work up an appetite. It's just about breakfast time. Your goal is just to knock them back and just try to give the things that you want to grow the lion's share of the resources that are in the soil, and try to minimize the weed situation. But the notion of having just a perfect, flawless, weedless garden, I'm not saying it's not achievable, but by spending way less time worrying about it and way less time dealing with it, you can have a 95% as good a garden. If you're busy and you got a job and you got stuff to do, that's good enough for me. Something I spend 5 minutes on, if it's half as good as something I need to spend 3 hours on, I'm cool with it. Right? That's the way I look at it. It's more like what's the net result, the ratio of effort to result. If I have to put almost no effort in and I get pretty good results, that's great. If I have to put a lot of effort in and get amazing results, I don't know, right? So yeah, just a few thoughts on weeds. I hope that was useful for you and answered some of those questions people are throwing at me. Yes, that mulch has weeds, but you're going to have a lot more weeds if you don't have a mulch. So just throw the mulch on and, enjoy. I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Don't forget to click the bell so you get notified when I make a new video. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.